So we're getting to the end of the Alpha Phase 2 when it comes to Elite Dangerous Odyssey, and I wanted to express my thoughts over what I thought of this particular phase of the experience. Generally speaking, I have to say that I like the addition of greater play area that Frontier has given us, as well as any of the planets that might be present in said bubble, which takes up roughly around 20 light years, perhaps radius. I don't think diameter is correct because I was able to go in very many different directions and not run into a wall just before that point. And in addition to all this new play space, any of the faction battles that take place within and the scuffles that you get yourself drawn into. A major point of this part of the alpha was to include aspects of Frontier Solutions, which is the faction war setting that includes you as the player, that brings you into ground combat in several environments on several different planets. And I suppose it's also the introduction of the different types of weapons against ground enemies. And I have to say that there are some positives and some negatives when it comes to that sort of thing. Some things I think that could have been done better, and things that I believe worked pretty well when you included them. So I'm actually going to use some notes this time around, which I think should keep me on track. I'm going to try that out and see how that works. So let's start with Frontier Solutions, which, as I mentioned before, is the player interaction with the faction wars. Generally speaking, I like the idea of Frontier Solutions as a way to sort of breathe some more life into the setting. Now, we've known that systems are in civil wars, or in conflicts, infrastructure failures, general incursions when it comes to the Thargoids, but we never really saw that sort of interaction extend to places on, say, planetary surfaces. Most of our battles happened in the skies above those planets that included a lot of fleet battles, generally speaking, but now we actually have some aspect of how those factions sort of expand to planetary surfaces. This is generally how wars work. You don't necessarily try to destroy your enemy outright, but you do try to take over their assets and infrastructure so that when you move in, generally speaking, you can try to run the show as good as they do. And I think that's the sort of thing that I like about the Frontier Solutions and the conflict system, is that we can sort of get a bit more of a breath into this world to sort of make it feel a bit more realistic. Logically, you're not going to fight a single battle in orbit over control of a system, but you're also going to be fighting wars on the ground to take over that infrastructure, take over that research, take over the weapons, and take over a whole bunch of little things that help expand the faction's influence on the system. So I like the general idea that was put in there. As I said before, it makes the world seem more real, and that's one of the things I like about Elite Dangerous. It feels like a real world. Some things happen out of your hands, and some things you have a personal hand in. So, I do like the inclusion of the first-person shooter segments, if as an option. Some people really aren't fond of it. I mean, I can really go around and tell you how many people have been saying, well, this doesn't feel like Elite at all. Well, you don't have to do it. It exists as an option. Generally, the arguments seem to be that Elite's about spaceship fighting. Well, okay, you can do spaceship fighting. And I believe that way back, I think it was in the cards that they were going to be doing something like this, a lot of first-person shooter aspects. I think, what was it, 2014, something like that? I don't know. I didn't get into the game until a little bit later, maybe around the time when Horizons was starting to come out, maybe a bit earlier than that. But I think it was always in the cards that there was going to be a first-person shooter segment. Now, a lot of the battles seem to take place around the settlement that you find on the planet, which, of course, you can land at your leisure and go around, steal, murder, loot, and do all that general nonsense. But you can also fight over things as well. And the general design, I say that a lot this time around, and the basic design of the conflicts is that it seems to revolve around capturing command posts, like that in Battlefield, generally speaking. This feels a lot like Battlefield with some aspects of some advanced motion, which includes your jetpacks, that I think it actually feels a little bit closer to Titanfall, and that you sort of control sort of similar to the pilots, and that you can move fast, you can use your jetpacks, and you can use all these little tools that'll give you an edge over the regular ground troopers. So, what I do like is that it's an option. I like the general existence of it. I like the fact that it exists at all, and that I can partake. You can actually even just waltz right up to the settlements and get involved yourself. You actually don't even need Frontline Solutions to do this. You can drive up with your SRV, fly up with your ship, and get involved. I don't think you necessarily get a lot of the vouchers that are involved in that, but it's an option. It's open. You can do what you like. I think it's cool that we also get the planetary environments involved as well, so that the players can use low gravity to their advantage, and they can feel that maybe things are a little bit fresh with the time of day system. I'm not entirely sure if all the planets that we're on actually even have a day-night cycle. I think some of them, a good portion of them, are probably tidally locked, but some of them probably spin around, which will probably give us a bit of freshness. Now, let me say that some things aren't necessarily hunky-dory when it comes to all this. I think almost said it again. I think the major concern seems to be that the AI doesn't really seem to do a whole lot. It doesn't really seem to be the smartest. More A than I, some would say. When I'm going around, when I'm fighting, I often try to take the high point when it comes to firing down at my enemies. And it makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's the high ground. It's a major military strategic position. But it doesn't seem like the enemies try to take cover very much. Maybe I see some go for maybe like a low wall or a half wall or something like that, but it doesn't really seem to be their first instinct. You take their shields down with the laser, switch to the kinetic weapons to finish them off. Some of them just stand out in the open, and I can see that as being a bit of a problem. It doesn't really seem like they have a lot in the way of self-preservation. Now, I don't know how easy it is to script AI. I can't really speak on that. But I think it would be, to everybody's benefit, I think it would definitely be to Frontier's benefit if they try to look into prioritizing threats when it comes to the player. Like if the player is trying to tag a lot of NPCs and is succeeding in really racking up a bunch of those things, I think that the AI should try to prioritize on the player, not necessarily the NPCs or multiple human players. I don't know if that's possible to do. But if they're really being picked off, I think that they could converge and try to keep the player on their toes. I'm actually a little bit surprised that they also don't have much in the way of jetpacks like me. Maybe you could make the argument like in Titanfall, like you're a pilot or you're the commander. You're a specialized sort of soldier that is a rank above the rest of everybody else. But I thought it was very odd that none of these NPCs would take the initiative to try to follow me up to these high positions, would try to force me off of my high perch. Not even necessarily even using jetpacks. Maybe they don't have jetpacks. I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt on that. But maybe they could at least try to jump up. Some of these planets have relatively low gravities, and it wouldn't be all that hard for them to get up there and try to force me off rather than me just taking pot shots at them until my ammunition runs out and I have to go and restock. I'm okay with the refueling of the recharging of the suit battery. That's not too bad at all. I haven't tried using an SRV in conflicts yet, so I have to get back to you on that, but a lot of people say that it's pretty game breaking. But the shields actually do tend to go down pretty quickly with SRVs, and I can say that based on some extracurricular activities that occurred when I was going around to some different settlements in a different system entirely. I was surprised how fast the general infantry could take down my SRV shields and actually do damage to the hull. It made me quite nervous. So they're okay when using mob tactics, and that was in open ground, so I can't really complain too much about that. Just try to run down your enemy and open fire. But when it comes to conflict zones, yeah, they really just bunch up. They don't really do a whole lot, and that's a little bit disappointing. Oh, before I forget, the after-action reports. I think it would just be a nice little bit of flavor text for them to attach, like your general shooter stats, like amount of enemies down, kill-death ratio, stuff like that. Maybe even like a score or something like that. I'm not arguing for full casualization. It just seems like the after-action report seems a little bit wasted when it only includes your system influence plus how many credits you get. It's nice to see how many credits you get. It's nice to see how much your influence is increased. But I think it would be nice to see a little bit of stats that are attached to that particular battle. I have seen some people also using ships in conflict zones. I haven't done this myself, but I can imagine that it can be pretty effective if you use the correct weapons. Now, Frontier has stated that ships cannot directly target ground forces, and I can attest to the fact that they can't target skimmers. Maybe they used to before. I believe they did in Horizon. But they cannot target skimmers anymore, at least in this phase of the alpha, and I can, like I said, I can attest to that. So maybe that makes it a little bit more difficult. But when it comes to area effect weapons, I think that missiles, dumbfire missiles, or mines can really shift the balance. Now, I know that ground forces can take down SRV shields pretty easily, and they could take down my shields very fast if they use plasma weapons. Maybe it's possible they can use plasma weapons against spaceships, but since we don't actually have plasma weapons, at least in this phase of the beta, I can't really speak to their effectiveness. But if they're very powerful against foot soldiers, they might be pretty powerful against spaceship shields as well. Now, again, we'll have to wait for that to come out, and maybe you might have to engineer some weapons. A major counter-argument to that is that, well, if I have a heavily engineered ship, it's going to completely blow everyone away. Well, what if I have a completely engineered weapon? What if I have a completely engineered heavy weapon that you use for somewhere on like the same line as the rocket launcher? Will it be effective? Will it not be? That's what the alphas are for, to balance all these things. That was a major thing what they were talking about, was balance. So ships could potentially be, not potentially, there's plenty of videos on YouTube showing that they're heavily effective when it comes to conflict zones. So how do I think that they could be balanced? Anti-ship lasers, to be honest with you. And I can say that they definitely do exist, because if I'm down there and I'm doing a conflict zone and I finish up, and if I call in a shuttle, not the Frontier Solutions dropship, just a shuttle, the Apex shuttles, the anti-ship cannons on the settlement will actually fire on the shuttle and actually take the shield down and cut into the hull. That's crazy. So I know they work. I know they're anti-ship lasers, but they don't really seem to do anything, and I don't know why. They should be completely active all the time. Now, maybe the respawn dropships could be flagged as being invincible or having heavy shields, if we want to keep it in the realm of possibility, so that they can, or maybe like, what is it, like multi-thread shields or something like that, or heavy boosted shields, use shield boosters to sort of still keep them balanced within the framework of the game, so that perhaps the settlement defenses can't completely destroy those dropships, but they can spawn in NPCs and take off. And those lasers can still be useful against any encroaching players or commanders that want to come in and try to use their ships to secure their pals an easy victory. So what do I think about the future of this? I think that it might be a good idea to experiment with other game modes when it comes to the Frontier Solutions ground combat. Now, we use something that's heavily reminiscent of Battlefield, of Titanfall, like meshed together, but I think it might be good to expand beyond the idea of the command post gameplay, the capturing points. Maybe they also need to tone down on like the radio communications. They're not, I mean, yeah, they are a little bit on the annoying side at this point, but they can definitely be toned down, and they can definitely explore other game types. What I mean by other game types, well, maybe you could do something that's similar to Capture the Flag. Maybe you can use a straight battle of attrition. Maybe you can use a thing that I was thinking about this a little bit earlier. I thought it was cool, was that you have data packets all over the settlement that players can capture and bring to their Frontier Solutions dropship that maybe is at different sides of the settlement, that they can load them up, earn points, and earn victory points or something like that, and then the dropships take off and they're tallied towards a victory. Maybe it could be escorting an SRV that goes around. I think that there could be a lot of different types of game modes that would make sense in the context of what a ground combat would be and how the factions are trying to expand their grip on the system. So I think that could happen. I really do think that they could also try to at least keep commander ships away. I recall them saying that they were going to set it so that you could attack a settlement with a ship, but you wouldn't have that ship for very long. I think they used an Orca as an example and stuff like that. Probably not the best example for a ship attacking a settlement. Okay, and the second half of all this, which is something that means a lot to me, is exploration. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning, they expanded the bubble beyond the Adityan system to a 20 light year radius bubble. Again, I think it's a radius, not a diameter. Don't quote me on that. But I feel like I got a lot of space to play around with. They expanded the bubble, which means that we can go and pick our ships up. We can go anywhere we want, although you still have the option to use the Apex shuttles as a long-range travel solution. Now, flying around on your own on all these planets is wonderful, I have to say. Me personally, I'm an explorer. That's one of the things that I really love to do in this game. That's the first elite rank I hit in this game, was through exploration. I've gone all over. I've been to Jacques Stations, I've been to Sagittarius A-Star, I've been to the Pleiades. I'm currently on my main account all the way out on the Galactic Rim using my lovely Explorer Conda that I've dubbed the Min-Max, which I've completely stripped down even the fuel tank so that I can get the maximum amount of jump distance at the risk of running out of juice out in the black. So seeing this sort of thing where we can go and explore even more planets really gets me interested. I really love what I saw so far. Now, when you pick up your ships, you're going to go to the Nervi system, which is where a lot of players are probably going to be exploring as well. It'll be their first chance to see the atmospheric planets, the tenuous atmospheres that you see there. But if you actually even look around, there are a couple of really, really cool planets to go and get lost in, to fly around and go to check out maybe like the little ground scatter forest that they're going and adding in there, which is starting to bring the game a little bit closer to No Man's Sky in terms of appearance, which is not a bad thing. No Man's Sky really matured into a great game. I think that Elite can really take inspiration and Frontier can take a lot of notes from No Man's Sky, what they did wrong, what they did well, and what they continue to improve upon. So, 2 planets in particular that really got me interested, outside of the Adichian system, outside of Nervi system, is the Hong system, specifically the moon Hong's A4, which is so cool because it has a lovely, lovely surface features of mountains and valleys. I remember going around here and just taking my Cobra and flying in this valley, just flying and just coasting and skimming close to the ground. The atmosphere was decently thick around the sun that was causing some nice atmospheric scattering, and I got to see some of the forests that were down there, and I even say that this is like a proto-forest. I think it made me really feel like I was truly a space explorer for a little while. I was just looking around, just looking at all this stuff, driving up the mountains, just looking out and taking screenshots. Oh, taking the screenshots, taking a lot of screenshots. This was the first planet that I was on when I truly felt wowed by this game. It was really, really nice. Of course, there is the planet Adichian itself, where you're around Armstrong's Legacy. When you go and drive around, when you walk around that station, that planetary settlement, you can truly get a sense of how big everything is. Even when you're on foot, it looks small. It looks small, but when you actually go and walk around, you get to see, wow, this is freaking huge. And it shows that maybe Frontier has a lot of potential to make some small-scale cities. I think we're all looking forward to the fact when they actually bring out the snapshot where you can go to our planetary ports of call that we love to use and just walk around. I for one, I call Ben's Keep my home. And I go to Ben's Keep because it's really cool. It has like this lovely ring that goes around as well. But it's also in plain view of the large planetary ports, which I think is basically a city at this point. I think that Frontier could really improve on this by having some SRV traffic going around, scanning data points, maybe some skimmers, maybe some people just walking around on the docks, just doing some stuff. You have a great opportunity to populate this world and make me invest in it. Going to Horizons, some of those things are really cool. You can see some skimmers going around in some of the smaller ports, but get some people walking around there. Get some SRVs driving around there. Make me feel like this is a living world. I'm getting sidetracked though, because there is a better planet I found, probably the best planet that I've, actually technically it's a moon, that I found in this. It's in the Lalande system. It's in the Lalande 43492 system. It's around the first planet. It's the G moon. And this is perhaps the greatest one that I found. It's my MVP for this phase of the beta right now. The reason for that is that Lalande 43492-1G has a ring. Now, normally that wouldn't be so big of a thing. A lot of moons have rings. But it also has an atmosphere, and it looks like the moon is also in a polar orbit around its gas giant, which means that you can actually see the ring side on, so that it's the full disk with the planet right in the middle with it, just hovering in the sky, and you're flying through there with this atmospheric hazing. It's just something that I've never seen before in Elite. It's something that's really, really neat. and it's something that I'll just fly around in just for kicks. It's cool. It's space exploration. It got me smiling just thinking about it. Maybe it's not for some people, but it's definitely for me. That's one of the reasons why I bought this game, is I can go around and fly in all these weird locations. Always picking the moon that's closest to the gas giant so that I have like this awesome shot. Always going to planets with rings so that I can see it in the air. Going to planets with strange and different surface features. And now we're probably going to get some forests and stuff like this. There was some forests on that particular moon as well. And there was also a chance for me to go and get out of my shell and do something I really wouldn't, such as going and doing some salvage missions, yeah, but also going all full dark side mode on one of the only settlement on that moon. I'm not entirely sure why. I think I was there to just try to download some data to try to get some suit and weapon upgrades, but I may have crossed over a restricted area, and I may have alerted the base, and I may have inadvertently completely eliminated everybody in that base. They gave it a good shot. I gotta give it to them. They even called in reinforcements. I even used my SRV. Oh, don't use your SRV as a physical weapon when it comes to defending against the base personnel. They actually damage your chassis quite a lot, I have to say. But it was also a chance for me to do some salvaging missions. There was some salvaging missions when I actually did the scan of the moon. I could see all the locations. They added some new locations like artificial structures, crash sites, salvage points, irregular markers. It's cool. It adds to it, probably in addition to the biological signals and the geological signals. Adds more life to a planet, makes it seem more believable, makes me want to spend more time there. I could spend hours just flying around and doing stuff like that if that's your cup of tea. So I found this SRV that was down on the ground, and it gave me an opportunity to go and grab some of the different materials that were there. I went out and I swapped out to my Maverick suit, where I cut open the rear of the SRV, took all the components, and then when I got back in my ship, I got a contact that came down. It was a vulture or something like that, perhaps, that was trying to drop off some hostile scavengers, or at least some competitors, and they landed right on my Cobra. They landed right on the wing. They didn't attack. They didn't do anything like that. Goes into the AI issue that I mentioned earlier. And I figured, what am I going to do in this situation? Then I immediately hit the engine power up and hit the vertical thrusters and flung both of them into the air. The dude went flying. I was completely losing my mind laughing over that sort of stuff. That's the sort of stuff that you hope happens in the game, that you have no control over, but you completely just get enamored with it. It reminds me a little bit of Mass Effect 1 in the way where if you hit like a dude with a Mako and he completely went skidding across the landscape, just bouncing along, and then suddenly when he's 3.5 miles down the valley, you just hear a boop and get that credit payment. That's what it reminded me of. It's cool. Actually, it reminds me of something else I didn't think about before, is instancing. Is that I guess that whenever you get in and out of your SRV or your ship and stuff like that, bodies disappear. I'm not entirely sure why this is the case, but I've seen it on 3 occasions where I was on foot, getting into my SRV, getting out of my SRV, and then going straight onto my ship. Bodies that were on there seem to disappear. I can't get the bounties. I can't do anything like that. File that under miscellaneous. So, getting back to what I was saying about exploration, was that even outside of atmospheric planets, we get to see a general improvement in everything. I think we saw that in the first phase of the alpha, where we were going around the Odyssey system, where we were seeing even the airless rocks got a lot of improvements. And I'd like to see where it goes from there. I'd like to see more snow planets. I'd like to see more rocky planets. And I'd like to see whether or not their positions offer more varied instances of geological activity, maybe some more canyons. That'd be nice to see, because I know they're putting a lot of scientific data into this game. It'd be nice to see them sort of really capitalize on that now that we're getting more advanced planetary tech. It's cool. I like the direction we're going. And I like to see more of this, maybe in Phase 3, but oh my goodness, have you got me excited for thick atmospheric planets. I'm really excited for this. Give me something I'm going to love. Give me something I'm going to enjoy. I will pay you for it. if you can make a convincing world for me. It's cool. I like it. I love it. Definitely needs some improvement, such as the surface features constantly swapping their textures for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why. Is that it just seems to jitter a little bit, like they can't decide what texture layer they want to use. That's one of the major problems I've found. And the frame rate drops, but everyone's suffering the frame rate drops. Frame rate drops are everywhere. I even upgraded my CPU, upgraded my motherboard, upgraded my RAM. I basically bought a new computer. I basically bought a new computer to play this game and edit, but play this game was one of the first things that threw me over the edge to upgrade. And I like it. Generally speaking, I'm really looking forward to Phase 3. Now, they mention that Phase 3 is going to include an update to 50 light years of a bubble, which is cool. We get to see more planets. We get to see how more of the conflict system are going to interact with one another. We get to see more trading. We get to see a whole lot more probably other missions. We get the addition of the Explorer suit, which will include the gene analyzer. I'd like to see how that works. That would really benefit me as an explorer. It would probably be the suit that I would most likely be wearing a lot when I'm out on those long expeditions, scanning everything and getting that data. The addition of First Footfall, which is nice. Now, I've been lucky to find a couple of moons and planets that haven't been claimed by people, at least in the alpha. So I went and I put my mark on that sort of thing as well. That was pretty cool. I like that. So I can say I did something. It's all going to be wiped when we get back to the main game anyway. But hey, for a little while, it is what it is. I made some money off it. I put my name on something. I'm happy. But the First Footfall, where we're going around, we'll do some stuff. It gives people a chance to put their name on stuff. People want to be remembered in some way. And the more famous people of the expedition and the expeditionary type that we see on YouTube and stuff like that, so I say, hey, it's one of my favorite YouTubers that went there. Oh, hey, who's this dude or something like that. Sometimes I wonder about that when I'm out on the expedition. I just stumble across a planet that somebody has discovered before me, even in the middle of nowhere. Now, let's see. Have I missed anything? No, and that's basically it. I generally think I covered the things that I'm looking forward to in Phase 3. More of what I found in 2. I guess I'm ahead of the curve in that I was really exploring a lot before exploration was actually supposed to be a thing, rather than going and fighting people. I generally play in solo. It's just a habit. Maybe I'll pop into open play every now and again to see how that goes, to see how combat goes with other players. I know some people were saying when it comes to the conflict zones, when it comes to the ground combat, the side that has the more humans will win. I want to see if I can put that to the test and figure it out. So, you suffered through me on this. I appreciate it if you made it through to the end. I'm looking forward to seeing more of this game. I'm looking forward to seeing the next phase of the alpha, even for the compatibility where I could actually get the min-max flying around on those planets and seeing how her big old hull handles the atmosphere. Probably not, probably tenuous, but it's something I haven't done before, and generally speaking, that's what I like about Elite. It's just something I haven't done. It's an escape. I like it. I like that Frontier is at least giving us the opportunity to do that sort of stuff. Is it perfect? Hell no. But it's nice. It's nice to see. I'm enjoying it. Thanks for watching.